We need fresh blood, not dinosaurs like you holding us back, he said, straightening his tie as if the conversation was merely a formality. My name is Arthur Mitchell. I'm 62 years old and had been the production director at Westfield Manufacturing in Portland, Oregon for nearly 2 decades. Not someone who commanded attention in boardrooms or gave rousing speeches at company events, just the reliable force that ensured everything ran smoothly at a business that supplied specialized parts to aerospace companies across the country. I simply nodded once, gave a slight smile that didn't reach my eyes, and walked out of Michael's office. No heated exchange, no begging, no scene. Just methodically emptied my desk while younger colleagues pretended to be engrossed in their computer screens. Some had started as interns right out of high school, now professionals with their own families, and I'd mentored every one of them personally. But not a single word was spoken as I packed 22 years of my professional life into a weathered cardboard box. Eleanor Westfield had established the company from nothing 38 years ago. Started with a single milling machine in a rented warehouse, built it into a $40 million enterprise through determination and an unwavering commitment to quality. She'd personally selected me to oversee production when she began stepping back from day-to-day operations. You understand that precision isn't just about measurements, it's about integrity, she'd told me then. Now her son Michael, 34 years old with an MBA and 3 years at a consulting firm in Chicago, had decided the company needed strategic restructuring and forward-thinking leadership, corporate speak for eliminating anyone who remembered when craftsmanship mattered more than quarterly projections. As I carried my belongings to my sedan, I felt an unexpected sense of calm, because what Michael didn't realize, what he hadn't bothered to review, was that my employment agreement contained a very particular clause, one that Eleanor herself had insisted on to ensure I wouldn't be tempted by competitors' offers. A mandatory severance package equivalent to 3 full years' salary if I was dismissed without documented cause. I placed the box in my trunk and sat in the driver's seat for a moment, hands resting lightly on the wheel. Through the windshield, I could see the manufacturing floor where I'd spent countless hours, equipment I'd selected myself, workflows I'd designed, people I'd trained, all about to discover what happens when accumulated wisdom walks away without transfer of knowledge. I didn't rev the engine, didn't leave tire marks in the parking lot, just turned the key, shifted into drive, and headed home to call Catherine Winters, an attorney friend who'd been waiting for a straightforward case like this to cross her desk. I've never been one for dramatic gestures. Married 31 years to my wife Margaret, before a stroke took her 5 years ago. Raised 3 children who'd all found their paths. Oldest daughter managing environmental projects in Seattle, son teaching high school physics in Baltimore, youngest daughter finishing medical residency in Austin. My existence had been built on reliability and precision, the same qualities I'd brought to Westfield Manufacturing. Eleanor Westfield had been more than an employer. In many ways, she'd become the mentor I never had growing up, my own mother having raised me alone, after my father was killed in an industrial accident, when I was just 8, leaving her to support me on a nurse's income. Eleanor had given me a chance at age 40, when the previous tech company I'd worked for had been acquired, and my entire division eliminated. Despite my associate's degree in mechanical engineering, and years of hands-on experience, papers and certificates don't impress me. Eleanor had said during my interview, understanding and commitment do. She'd promoted me to production director within 18 months. Eleanor and I weren't the social types who'd spend weekends on golf courses or meet for dinner parties, but there existed between us a professional respect that transcended the typical employer-employee relationship. When Margaret's health failed, Eleanor had been the one to restructure my responsibilities without my asking, ensuring I could be present for my wife's final months. Family is the foundation of everything worthwhile, Arthur. Never forget that. The first warning sign appeared about 14 months ago when Michael began attending production meetings. Fresh from his MBA program, carrying an expensive leather portfolio, and constantly checking his smartphone, talking about optimization metrics and vertical integration. I'd notice Eleanor wincing occasionally at his suggestions, proposals that would have sacrificed quality control or outsourced components we'd always manufactured in-house to maintain standards. But she never contradicted him publicly, just quietly adjusted things afterward. He needs to learn by doing, Arthur, she'd confided one evening, perched on a stool in my office. Some lessons can't be taught in classrooms. The second warning came when Eleanor announced her retirement 4 months ago. Health issues, she claimed, though I suspected it had more to do with surrendering to Michael's persistent pressure. She appeared diminished when she shared the updated organizational chart with Michael's name at the top. I made him swear to keep the veteran team intact, she'd said, her gaze not quite meeting mine. The institutional knowledge you all carry is what makes this place succeed. I merely nodded, but something in my chest tightened. The way Eleanor avoided eye contact told me more than her words. She knew what was coming, but couldn't bring herself to admit it. The day after my termination, I was reviewing my employment contract with Catherine at my kitchen table when my phone displayed Eleanor's name. I nearly let it go to voicemail, almost, but 22 years of mutual respect doesn't dissolve overnight. Arthur, her voice sounded strained. What the hell happened yesterday? Your son can probably explain better than I can, I replied, keeping my tone neutral, not accusatory, just factual. I asked him. He said you were. She hesitated, searching for words, resistant to necessary changes, that you were undermining his authority with the floor staff. I remained silent, letting the pause lengthen between us. Eleanor knew my character better than that, knew I'd never sabotage anyone, especially not the company I'd helped build. You're filing a claim, aren't you? She finally asked. Already in process, I answered. Catherine Winters is representing me. Eleanor exhaled heavily. I reminded him to review all executive contracts before making personnel changes. Told him before I stepped aside that there were protective provisions in place. Another pause. He let go of 6 people yesterday. You, Robert, Diana. Everyone with over 20 years at Westfield. My jaw clenched. Robert had managed quality assurance for 17 years. Diana had developed our proprietary testing protocols that became industry standards. Both irreplaceable in their respective domains. Is that the direction you envisioned, Eleanor? Removing everyone who built the company alongside you? You know it isn't, she said, voice weary. But I transferred controlling interest. It's his to direct now. I heard voices in the background. One distinctly Michael's, curt and demanding. I need to go, Arthur, Eleanor said hurriedly. The line went dead. I set the phone down and studied my contract spread across the table. In event of termination without documented cause as defined in Appendix E, employee shall receive severance compensation equivalent to 36 months of current salary. Catherine had marked it with fluorescent yellow highlighter. This is ironclad, she'd assured me earlier. They'll either pay voluntarily or will litigate and win, with them covering legal expenses as well. I walked to the back window overlooking my garden. The cherry tree Margaret and I had planted 29 years ago now dominated the yard. We'd nursed it through drought, disease, and a particularly harsh winter that nearly killed it. Supported it, protected it, gave it everything necessary to flourish. Something crystallized inside me. This wasn't merely about financial compensation. It was about recognition, about acknowledging what experience contributes to an organization, about respecting the foundation that others established before you decided to renovate the structure. I retrieved my phone and called Robert, then Diana. By early afternoon, I'd spoken with every veteran employee Michael had dismissed. Some were in shock, others seething with anger, all concerned about their futures. Take a breath, I advised each of them. Review your contracts carefully. Call Catherine. Then I placed one more call to Victoria Liang, CEO of Precision Aerospace Components across town, a woman who'd been attempting to recruit me away from Westfield for nearly 5 years. Still interested in that conversation? I asked her. 4 days after my termination, I sat across from Michael and Westfield's corporate attorney in a downtown conference room. Catherine Winters beside me, her worn leather briefcase open, my contract prominently displayed. This is completely unreasonable, Michael said, barely glancing at the document. We're implementing strategic changes. That constitutes sufficient cause. Catherine, at 64 with the unflappable demeanor of someone who'd witnessed every corporate tactic imaginable, simply indicated the highlighted clause. Termination without documented cause as defined in Appendix E requires severance equal to 36 months' salary, approximately $465,000 in Mr. Mitchell's case. The corporate attorney, a young woman named Stephanie, who appeared barely 5 years out of law school, examined the contract with growing discomfort. Westfield, the definition of cause here is quite specific. Performance deficiencies, ethical violations, policy breaches. He was obstructing progress, Michael interrupted, adjusting his cufflinks. That's insubordination. Where's the documentation? Catherine inquired. Written warnings, performance improvement plans, because Appendix E explicitly requires a documented pattern, not isolated incidents. Stephanie rifled through a thin folder before her, finding nothing substantive. Michael's expression hardened. Fine, we'll provide reasonable severance and close this matter. 9 months. 36 months, Catherine corrected, as contractually stipulated. That's absurd, he snapped. We'll offer 12 months, final offer. I remained quiet, observing him. In that moment he reminded me of his mother, the same determined set to his jaw. But Eleanor's determination had always been directed toward building something enduring. His seemed focused on dismantling. Catherine closed her briefcase with a soft click. Then we'll proceed with litigation. Discovery should prove particularly interesting, especially regarding the simultaneous termination of multiple employees over 55. Stephanie's eyes widened perceptibly. She leaned toward Michael and whispered something urgent. He waved her off. Before making threats, Michael said directly to me, completely ignoring Catherine, "Understand we're prepared for prolonged litigation. You'll be tied up in legal proceedings for years." I finally spoke. "I've got nothing but time, and will ensure everyone in the industry knows you're difficult," he added. "Good luck securing another position at your age." That's when his mother appeared in the doorway. I hadn't seen Eleanor since her retirement celebration. She looked frailer, more diminished, but her eyes retained their characteristic sharpness. "Michael," she said quietly, "a word. We're in the middle of negotiations, Mother. Now." Not a suggestion. They stepped outside. Through the glass partition, I could see them engaged in heated discussion, Eleanor gesturing emphatically, Michael's posture becoming increasingly defensive. When they returned, Michael wouldn't meet my gaze. "Stephanie," Eleanor said, "prepare the severance agreement, as specified in the contract." "Mother," Michael began. Not another word. Eleanor's voice carried surprising authority despite her diminished physical presence. She turned to me. "I apologize, Arthur. This isn't what I intended when I stepped down." I nodded once. Nothing further needed expressing between us. As Catherine and I prepared to leave, Michael stepped directly into my path. "This isn't finished. I'll be reviewing all supplier relationships. Any company that hires you can forget about future business with Westfield." Eleanor paled at his statement, but remained silent. I simply nodded again, thinking about my conversation with Victoria Liang the previous day, about the partnership proposal she'd extended, about the specialized components market Westfield had been neglecting that Precision Aerospace was preparing to enter. "You're right about one thing," I told him. "It isn't finished." The severance payment appeared in my account 8 days later. $365,000 after taxes. More money than I'd ever seen at once in my life. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Financial compensation wasn't the ultimate objective. Neither was retaliation. Truthfully, it was about something more fundamental. That same evening, I met Robert Simmons, our former quality assurance manager, at a cafe between our neighborhoods. The establishment was nearly deserted at 4 in the afternoon. Just an elderly couple by the window, and us at a corner table. "Catherine secured 18 months severance for me," he said, nursing a cup of coffee gone cold. "Not as generous as your arrangement, but substantially better than expected." "Required NDA?" I asked. Robert nodded. "Can't discuss proprietary methodologies or business practices for 3 years. He gave a humorless chuckle. 38 years in quality control and suddenly I'm prohibited from discussing my own innovations. "You signing it? Don't see alternatives. Daughter's wedding next summer." I slid a business card across the table. "Victoria Liang, Precision Aerospace Components. She's seeking a consultant." I explained. "Someone with expertise in aerospace quality standards. No confidentiality agreement necessary." Robert stared at the card skeptically. "Westfield would initiate legal action if I accepted this. Not if you're merely advising on industry standard practices. Nothing proprietary about that." He pocketed the card hesitantly. "What's happening, Arthur? This isn't your usual approach." I hadn't shared my arrangement with Victoria with anyone yet, but Robert deserved transparency. We'd collaborated for nearly 2 decades. "I'm partnering with Precision," I said quietly. "Victoria is bringing me on to establish a new division. Specialized components for next-generation aircraft. The high-precision limited production work Michael considers inefficient." Robert's eyebrows arched in surprise. "The custom fabrication division?" Eleanor always maintained that was Westfield's future, and Michael's eliminating it to concentrate on mass production. Believes he can compete with overseas manufacturers on cost alone. "He can't," Robert stated flatly. "Not with our labor and facility expenses."
"I know."
"So does Eleanor." Robert leaned forward. "Is that why you're telling me this? You think Eleanor's involved somehow?" I shook my head. "No, but I had coffee with Diana yesterday. She said Michael's liquidating equipment. The specialized machinery Eleanor acquired last year for the custom fabrication division. He's already sold nearly 60% of it. That's almost $3 million in equipment," Robert said, visibly stunned. At liquidation prices. Probably received 40 cents on the dollar. Robert sat back, comprehension dawning. He's stripping company assets, converting equipment to liquid capital. I nodded. And according to industry rumors, someone's been acquiring commercial property in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood. Christ. Robert removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. Does Eleanor know? I doubt it. She built that company for continuity, not liquidation. We sat silently for several moments, both contemplating the implications, not just for us but for the 100+ employees still at Westfield. For Eleanor's life's achievement. What's your plan? Robert finally asked. Create something better, I answered simply. Something that honors both tradition and innovation. With Victoria Liang? Robert sounded unconvinced. Victoria's primarily an investor. She's 3 years from retirement, herself, wants to support experienced professionals, then gradually withdraw. And let me guess, you need a quality assurance expert who understands aerospace standards. I smiled genuinely for the first time in weeks. The position's available if you're interested. Once your NDA is properly limited to genuinely proprietary information, not general expertise. Robert studied me intently. This isn't strictly business for you, is it? It's personal. It's about values, I said. About creating something lasting. That's all I've ever wanted to accomplish. 3 months after my termination, I sat in Victoria Liang's office, reviewing technical specifications for the new facility. The renovated industrial building in southeast Portland would house Heritage Precision, our new venture specializing in custom aerospace components. The name had been Robert's suggestion. Build on heritage, progress through precision, he'd explained. That's how you create something meaningful. Victoria, a slender woman with silver-streaked black hair and perpetually practical attire, distributed supplier agreements across her desk. Material suppliers confirmed, she said. They can deliver initial alloy shipments by month's end. And the design engineer starts next Monday. Former Westfield employee mentioned your recommendation. I nodded. Alicia Fernandez had been with Westfield for 9 years. Brilliant with computational fluid dynamics, consistently underpaid. Michael had reduced her department's budget by 40% while increasing executive bonuses. She'd resigned 3 weeks ago. How many does that make now? Victoria asked. 9, I replied. All top performers. Victoria emitted a low whistle. Westfield's hemorrhaging talent rapidly. People follow effective leadership, I said. Michael isn't providing it. My phone vibrated. A message from Diana, still employed in Westfield's testing laboratory but keeping me informed. With retirement 5 years away, she couldn't afford resignation, but she could certainly remain observant. The text contained a photograph of an internal document. Production delays, quality assurance failures, 4 major clients threatening contract cancellation over missed deadlines. I showed it to Victoria, who adjusted her reading glasses to view it clearly. Precisely as anticipated, she said. The expertise exodus is already impacting operations. I returned my phone to my pocket, feeling no satisfaction in the news. Westfield employed families I'd known for years. People with mortgages, tuition payments, elderly parents requiring care. Their suffering wasn't my intention. We should approach Northwest Aviation, I said, referring to one of Westfield's significant clients. Let them know we'll be operational within 90 days. Victoria nodded, making a notation. Already scheduled for next Thursday. Their procurement team is eager for alternatives. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the production floor below. Workers were installing initial equipment, the framework of something new. Something built on respect for experience and innovation alike. My phone rang. Eleanor Westfield's name on the display. I should take this, I told Victoria, who nodded and departed, closing the door behind her. Eleanor, I answered. Arthur. Her voice sounded weary, defeated. We need to talk. I'm listening. A heavy sigh. I know what you're doing. The new company, the Westfield employees you're recruiting. I'm not calling to ask you to stop, Eleanor continued. I'm calling to request your assistance. That caught me unprepared. What kind of assistance? The kind that might preserve what remains of my company. She paused. Michael's been selling off assets, compromising quality standards. The board is alarmed. So am I. Why? Approach me about this. Because you understand every aspect of the operation. The only one who might identify a viable path forward. Another pause. And because I should have heeded your concerns months ago when you warned me, he wasn't prepared for leadership. I closed my eyes, thought about all those years working alongside Eleanor, building something we both took pride in, something that employed hundreds of people who depended on us to make responsible decisions. What exactly are you proposing, Eleanor? Come to my home tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. Bring Robert if he's willing. The board wants to meet. To discuss options. Options. Yes. Eleanor's voice strengthened slightly, including leadership restructuring. I looked down at the production floor again, at our small but growing enterprise, at the future I'd been constructing from the remnants of betrayal. I'll be there, I said finally. But I'm not making any commitments. Completely understood. Relief evident in her voice. And Arthur. Yes, thank you, for still answering my calls. 7 months after being fired, I stood at the back of Westfield Manufacturing's executive conference room. The quarterly all-company meeting had just commenced, with Michael at the head of the table, flanked by his new leadership team, most under 40, all appearing distinctly uncomfortable. I wasn't scheduled to speak until the conclusion. That had been the arrangement with the board. Allow Michael to present his quarterly results first. Give him the opportunity to explain the 42% decline in revenue, the terminated contracts, the quality control catastrophes. He was midway through a presentation blaming market conditions and legacy inefficiencies when he noticed me. What's he doing here? He demanded, pointing in my direction. Eleanor, seated quietly among board members, nodded to the chairwoman who stood. Michael, the chairwoman said. The board has reached a determination regarding corporate leadership. His face drained of color. You can't be serious, Arthur, the chairwoman continued. Turning to me, would you like to explain the new structure? I stepped forward, holding a folder, the same one Catherine had prepared for my severance 7 months earlier, but containing very different documents now. Westfield Manufacturing is merging with Heritage Precision, I said. My voice measured. The board approved the acquisition agreement this morning. Michael laughed sharply. This is preposterous. I'm the principal shareholder. No, Eleanor said, rising slowly. You hold 25%. I maintained 55%, which I've now voted in favor of the merger. I slid the folder across the table to him. Heritage will incorporate Westfield's custom fabrication division. The remainder will continue under new leadership. My leadership, Robert said, entering from the doorway. Michael leafed through the documents, his hands trembling. This is business. I finished for him. Nothing personal. 14 months after the merger, I stood in the expanded facility that now housed both Heritage Precision and Westfield Custom Fabrication. Workers moved efficiently between stations, the rhythm of machinery creating a productive harmony I'd missed during my absence. Eleanor joined me, on the observation platform, leaning slightly on her walking stick. Her health hadn't improved substantially, but her spirit had. Witnessing the company flourish again had provided the best possible therapy. Financial reports arrived, she said, handing me a document. Best performance in 6 years. I nodded, reviewing the figures. Profit margins increased. Employee retention stabilized. 4 new patents filed. Michael called yesterday, Eleanor said quietly. From Chicago. I raised an eyebrow, but remained silent. After the merger, he'd accepted his settlement and vanished. No farewells, no acknowledgments. He's establishing a consulting practice, she continued. Asked if I would invest. Will you? Eleanor shook her head, told him to return to Portland first. Learn the business from fundamental principles, the way I did, the way you did. And he hung up. She smiled sadly, but called back this morning, asked if the offer remained open. Below us I watched Alicia training 3 new engineers on our latest design system. Diana in her laboratory, inspecting components with her characteristic thoroughness. Robert at a workstation, reviewing quality metrics before implementation. Experience and innovation working in tandem, not in opposition, not one displacing the other, but creating something more resilient together. You know, Arthur, Eleanor said, when I included that severance clause in your contract, I never imagined how events would unfold. I smiled. Neither did I. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the company we'd both helped create continue evolving. Some lessons come at great expense, but those that transform our perspective, those that reshape our understanding of the world, those are invariably worth the cost.